I like talking about my metal days for sure. Not a lot of people ask me about them, so
Yeah, dude. I think everybody needs to fucking hear about your metal days. So I would actually want to go ahead and get this puppy kicked off. So I have an excited guest, Dell fucking Dupree, the copier warrior, aka the guy that actually did metal bands for a little bit. How the fuck are you, dude?
I'm pretty good. I got usually when I get asked that question, I try to really think very seriously about it. And I think so like I think my kids are great. They're both in like these weird stages of their lives where they're like one's 7 and one's 2, but they're both obsessed with Godzilla. So that's how they like get along. And so that's perfect. And then my wife and I mean, bro, we've been married since 2007. We've been together since 2003. Yeah, like her and I are on a whole nother level right now. And just like that really, really leads to, more than just like happiness. That leads to like full on fulfillment in your life with like the cancellation of self doubt, depression, a lot of the things that I typically struggle with in my life. Like my wife is just this, she's the backbone, bro, in the relationship we have. It blesses me heavily. And then my business is good. All my people are amazing at the company. And, so I get the only thing that would make like things not be good is um the fact that I guess really the fact that no one is talking a lot of like shit to me on my LinkedIn lately. And
The
I
fuck?
kind of feel like I
What?
feel like I'm losing my edge, I feel like
You
I'm
doing
not
it?
like listening to people enough.
I think I think you're fucking up, man. Because like being serious for a second, like the only way to really cut through the noise this day is you have to be a total asshole, right? And we just call out people and we just piss people off, right? Every month. No, I don't want to get into that. I don't think it's lawyers for that. But no, it's no, it what I love about you, man. First off, huge fan, right? I love that you just really just go in super fucking raw, right? Like you're really honest and you speak right from the heart. And what it resonates with me because like kind of alluding what you were saying, when you're fighting through like depression and you're fighting through suicidal thoughts and you've got your family and you got all these different obstacles that we encounter in our lives, like it sometimes it feels like we're alone. And so I think the thing that you're doing is kind of uh this therapy, this remedy that the sales world they really need right now. Now, before we get into some really heavy shit, I actually want to talk about your heavy metal band. I actually have a clip here. Can I share it? Can we do that really quick? Because I really want to fucking let the world know. Yeah, let me go ahead. Oh, you go. You already got the. You see, you're already on top of the animations of this new thing. Let's look at this shit real quick. So just so everybody's on the same page, Dale here used to not only be like not just in a fucking band. This guy was the singer of a heavy metal band called Imperial. This is We Sell at Dawn. I'm just gonna show a quick clip of it. Yes. Oh my fucking god, dude. Do you fucking believe this shit? I um I actually am so I know that's not sales, but it is sales. Like it's so funny because that reminds me a lot of like drink like I don't know anyone who's gonna be watching this who's like in the metal, like Dark Tranquility and shit. And like a hardcore dude. Yeah. So before we talk about stuff, like talk me about the metal journey and like how really like the inception of the band. Like, was that your idea? Like,
Yeah,
did they
yeah.
did they see you play on stage? You're like, fuck this.
Let's see, I was 12. I was 12 when I first wanted to play musical instruments outside of the piano. So my mom like made us all as kids take piano lessons. And by the way, I was homeschooled. So for anybody listening, it's like, why'd your mom make you take piano lessons? Well, it was like literally part of school with my mom. We did lots of experiential things, lots of hands-off learning. It was never like we did classroom stuff for sure too, and textbook, learning, but a lot of the experiences that she wanted us to have would be things we had taken to the world was the idea. So she made us all take piano, like all four of us took piano lessons when we got to a
Wow.
certain age. And I liked the piano, it was cool, but like I would have rather played something like the drums. And so I kinda and my cousin played drums, my cousin Justin played drums, Justin Foreman, shout out to Justin Foreman, what a guy,
Yeah.
and my dad was like, "Hey, look, like, I'll let you play the guitar." My dad's like, "I played the guitar," and obviously I knew that to an extent because I'd seen him pick one up at a campfire here and there kinda thing, but he goes, "But you have to learn the acoustic guitar first, and then you can
Mhm.
get an electric guitar." So he started me on acoustic. I learned just, like, the basics, chords, rhythm, and basically could just, like, put a melody together, and I spent about, I don't know, 6 months or so learning, perfecting, if you will, and then one day I woke up and it was like Friday night date night once a month with my dad kind of thing, and we show up to Sam Ash music store. God, dude, that's a throwback, right? And so he took me to Sam Ash and I bought a Gibson SG. It was the Pantone. It was like a yellow. It was yellow, like a dark yellow with a cherry wood color. I know there's some people out there that are hearing this are like, dude, I had that same guitar. It was really
Yeah.
popular at the time, and so I got that, and then I got lessons with a guy at Sam Ash for the next 6 months, and he taught me everything to know about an electric guitar kind of thing. And then I he also taught me, which I find to be very interesting. He was in a reggae cover band and they
Mhm.
played like House of Blues once a month kind of thing. They were a contract artist basically. And so he taught me all this like funky rhythmic style of music and then a lot of reggae styles. And also I was listening to the radio, right, which was a thing at that time at least. And I was listening to like Green Day because that was as like heavy as it got on the radio. And he started to tell me things like, there's like a whole scene of music you're kind of missing out in this genre, which got me into all the underground artists. And this is middle school, right? I'm 13 at this point,
Mhm.
going on 14, and I'm getting into high school, right? And as a homeschooler, you still take classes, just so everybody knows. Like you can strictly be in the home, or your mom can sign you up with like a co-op
Okay.
and a company essentially that like is an education firm, if you will, that like just like a charter school or but without the classroom stuff every day. It's like once a week electives or twice a week electives. So I had a class in my freshman year of high school while I was still like learning the guitar. And at this point, at 13, I was playing with my cousin Justin, who was on the drums in his garage. And we were just playing, like, he taught me Depeche Mode, Pearl Jam, Nirvana, a lot of grunge, like Yano Waits, like, he taught me a good amount of, like, electronic music mixed with, like, this grunge 90s style, early 90s style. So it was diversifying me. Nine Inch Nails, I remember, was his favorite artist.
Yeah.
Yeah, which was just, like, hilarious to think back to. But anyway, so I'm like kind of learning heavy music over here on the side. I've kind of got like influences from other people around other types of music. I'm learning the guitar differently than most people. And I have this teacher in high school in my music theory class that wanted me to learn the roots of heavy music. So I was like, "What does that mean?" She's like, "Well, I hear you starting to get into like more of the punk rock stuff." So I'm listening. Suddenly, it's MXPX, and then all of a sudden, it's like Strong Arm to all my real hardcore friends out there, and Donnybrook, and like so I'm venturing into like Sex Pistols times 1,000 kind of music. And suddenly I'm listening to like Kill Switch and Cage and As It Lay Dying and all these like metalcore bands. And this teacher, man, she changed my life, bro. She was like, go learn the origins of metal, of screaming music. And so I found Alice Cooper. It's the first one I found, right? And I was like, oh,
Yeah.
this is the father of this stuff. It has to be like shock rock kind of thing. And so I took it to her. I was like, here, I found it. This is where it started. She goes, no. She's like, his influence is somebody else too. And I'm like, what? And then I go do some more research and I find this guy, Screaming Jay Hawkins is his
Yeah.
name. And some people know him, some people don't. He has a song actually called I Put a Spell on You. I think it was I Dream of Jeannie. It's in the show, but it's like a snippet of it kind of thing. But this guy, the story is incredible. He would drink a fifth of whiskeys the only way that he would perform it or record it. He would drink a fifth of whiskey, and he would be just so drunk that like his vocal became more fluent, and he would yell and scream, but it would be like in key and in a certain tone. And so my teacher didn't just teach me that like shock rock is a place where people go to yell and scream and make noise. She taught me that it was art.
Yeah, dude.
And dude, I, like, literally changed my life. It blew my mind and changed my life, and then
Well,
the rest is
it's
history.
no, it's so funny you say that though, because it's like I think there is a misconception, and we are going to go into cells, and we're going to tie this in. You'll figure it out. So I actually got into I don't know if you heard of the band Star Symmetry, but yeah, fucking love them, love them. That was my jam, right? And I actually would like listen to that like habitually. I was actually going to go into the army when I was in high school, like, and things happened. But I was listening to Scar Symmetry, and I remember it would be like really late at night. And the one thing that would always like really like motivate me, pump me up was the vocals. It was melodic metal, right? It was just growling. And I think the misconception is, like, you ever heard of like Cradle of Filth and stuff? Like, there's other, which is, by the way, don't ever give that to your kids. Uh, and don't ever give that to your kids. Don't listen to it if you're religious. But there is a really like deeper underlying meaning that goes into these lyrics, and a lot of it is just very like emotional. And what I like about what you just said though, so you really learned how to interpret, like how to really like channel and tap into like the metal, right? And would you say that that exposure to being like you're gaining that perspective of like vocals, and you're gaining the perspective of different instruments. Would you say that tapped into your success with copy yourselves, like going and doing that in in the transference, or was it something that was just kind of like unintentional? Like, walk me through what that looked like for you. Like, what was the unintended side effects of that?
Well, so, like, I left music because, in short, because, one of the members of my band, developed a addiction to heroin, and that look, like, when you're in a metal band and you're touring all over the US and you got an album that's being sold in Hot Topic, and you're on compilations with Lamb of God and these massive like, you like, get to a point, like, where we were, where, like, you had access, so we had access, lots of access, and then on top of it, that access leads to temptation, so sex, drugs, alcohol, like, all those things are very prevalent, and they're part of the culture, essentially, of music, and that there's a lot of unspoken rules, that I don't mind talking about, but, most people, they're married and got 4 kids, and on the road, they're sleeping with 7, 8 girls a day kinda thing.
Mhm.
And actually, there's a really good testimony out there, a man named Brian Welch, who's the guitar player for
Yes.
who talks
Yes.
about his, like, a meth addiction, bro, in a band where he was making millions. Right? So, like, I think
Yeah.
a lot of people don't understand. They think like, "Oh, well, you're a millionaire, like, you're probably a pretty clean person, maybe you drink a lot," but I remember the first time I met a guy that had a meth addiction in sales. He drove a Bentley, and he made, like, $2.5 million a year, but you could catch him
Crazy.
you could catch him behind a dumpster shooting up with a crackhead. Like, that's a crazy thought, right? But, like,
Yeah.
drugs are powerful, dude, and heroin is something that, ultimately takes reality away, and when you're somebody, like you just said, that, like we were talking about earlier, that struggles with things like depression and self-worth and loneliness and self-doubt, heroin fixes those things, and so I had a guitar player that was just addicted to it, and I didn't say, "Cool, we'll keep playing." I said, "Let's get him sober. He's my best friend and the founding member of the band with me, and let's fix him, and I need to do something in the meantime before we can go tour again," and my dad owned a copier company, so I said, "I'll do that," and since my dad owned the copier company and he was also very different in his style of leadership and how he built his business. He said, "Yo, you can do whatever you want here. You can wear your earrings if you want to, because I had big, half-inch gauges. You could let your hair stay long. You don't even need to trim your beard." I used My beard used to like be a landed beard, and you can do all that stuff. You be yourself first and foremost, no matter what. If you're going to come over here and sell with me, and then I'll teach you sales. Throughout the process of you experiencing it, I'll help you. And so my dad was like, he was that kind of teacher, right? So man, yeah, I looked at sales in the beginning stages. I got like a little overwhelmed, and I went and found CDs and tapes, because that was the thing still back then, of like Zig Ziglar teachings and Dale Carnegie, and those guys fucked me up for sure, and like made me think, not like bad, but they made me think in a box. They were like boxed me in. They were like, "Nah, you got sales is like this. You got to be like this. You got to look a certain way. You got to talk a certain way. You got to act a certain way." Regardless of their what's good about them, they did not preach authenticity at any stage, bro. So it took me a couple years to really like let the art out in my sales career. But man, as soon as I realized like I could be vulnerable, like you had just even stated, like I could be somebody that says how I feel and not have to worry about what others think of me, everything changed. And by the way, going back to like the lyrics of my music, to your point, which by the way, like we played shows with Danny Filth and the guys from Cradle, and like went to see them play. Yeah, I mean, we had a they're not Satanists like they act like they are.
There's
Oh,
all
so bro.
I no, it's all an act, man, and, I think, a couple things to say on what you just said. But yeah, a lot of it's just characters. And I think when you enter sales, like specifically, we do have a persona that we put on, and you've got your stage presence, and then there's the people behind the curtain. And I think you do have to have that separation, because the problem that we get, especially like as high performers, men especially, but of course this applies to women, is we allow our identities to tie into our self-worth as it relates to like what we sell. And if you're not closing, you're worthless, because we like intrinsically when we look at sales, like look at the leaderboard. And perfect example is if you have a leaderboard, you're not top of the leaderboard, fuck off. You're a bottom performer. And who gets cut? The bottom performers. And so I think when we talk about like drug addiction, and we talk about how that like interweaves into some of the challenges that like you'll run into, if you have like an addictive personality, you're addicted to winning, and you do have to kind of lubricate that, like that sense of like I'm a failure if you're not performing, or you have to numb like a lot of the bullshit. I don't think people realize like it's super fucking common, by the way, like, nobody really talks about this. This is, like, the deep underbelly of sales, but, like, your best performers are almost always fucked up, and I remember, there's actually a lot of stories about this, um, but, like, in a couple of, like, president's clubs that I went to, I distinctly remember my senior, uh, like, it was like a senior director of sales. He was shit faced as he was giving the ceremonial speech in front of like the top 1% of our company. We're over in Puerto Rico, and this guy's fucking hammered. And like, you see him like after the ceremony, he's like yelling at his wife, like on the phone and shit, because he's just very angry. And I think a big aspect of like when we talk about like addictions, and we talk about drugs, and we talk about alcohol, is how prevalent to abusive it is. And there's just this in going to what you're saying, like I think to a certain point, like in my personal journey, and I went through a lot of fucked up shit too. We all have. So there's nothing special about me. But I found that pursuit of perfection was mostly a shallow and useless endeavor, to be honest. You could still crush, but like at a certain point, who gives a fuck, right? Like when you're at the top of the leaderboard, like, okay. What the question is what are you gonna do for me tomorrow? So for you, you went into so you got into copy yourselves, right? And which is arguably one of the hardest cutthroat industries. I don't think people realize, for the record, how fucking hard it is to sell a Xerox machine. Okay. And I'm going to let you talk about it because I don't think people realize the nuts that you have to fucking like, you're dragging your balls by the ground uh, because of just how difficult it is to sell a fucking Xerox machine. Okay. So, like, I would get fucked up on that job. I would want to get high. I would get drunk, like straight up. So how did you manage to cope with that? Like you had a great figure with your father, who was arguably the best salesman of your life and one of the greatest influences. But how did you cope with doing that? You went from music to selling copiers, and then you were dealing with the things like in that environment where your friends are struggling. And how did you like keep your shit together, dude? Like how you
Yeah, this is a good one. I'm gonna get real raw here too.
go get
I
it?
don't get this question enough, really, honestly. So like if going back to even what we were just talking about, if you at a very young age, vulnerability became something that I had to embrace in my life. And the first time is when I tried to commit suicide as a teenager, that was dumb and naive and lived in ignorance. Uh, I I portrayed myself, by the way, as a very happy. I'm the same guy you see today, right? Like, man, this guy's got energy and what a great family life. And like, I am in pursuance of happiness. Like, that's why. But at the time, as a young kid, I had no idea how to like express how I felt behind that at all. And the internet was like brand new back then. And so I Googled like how to kill yourself, basically.
Mm,
And it was like you use a knife, you cut up your arm, your wrist,
mm,
yeah, and I cut myself the wrong way multiple times, nothing was happening. I
mhm.
carved my entire arm up, and it was a state of just complete and utter failure, sadness, and distinct desire to leave this earth.
Yeah.
And in the process of doing that, my mom actually, like, she came home from work early, but she basically saved my life, and I can only imagine, like, the trauma that that created for her, like, to see your kid in that state. It's not something I put together until I got much older, but what I did put together very quickly was, like, they gave me permission to tell them. They were like, "Hey, maybe we haven't told you this yet, and you felt scared, to be honest, but you can be honest with us." And then they didn't just give me that permission. My dad actually ended up expressing to me things that, man, I get choked up just thinking about it, but expressing to me things that, like, he didn't have to, first and foremost. Secondly, they were major struggles in his life that, yeah, I don't know that a lot of dads would say, "Tell your teenage son these stories," right? Like, it could have been something, and I know, I shouldn't even say could have. It was definitely something that most people would be like, "That's a very Curtis thing to do," and I would never do it. And Curtis was the name of my dad. And so, but in that moment, man, my dad, he really turned a switch for me where I understood, like, "Oh, I can be vulnerable." But I still struggle greatly. So, like, go to my album, This Grave Is My Poem. You'll find 5 songs. It's a 5-song EP or 6-song EP? 5 song, 6-song EP. I can't remember anymore. It's been a long time, but, whatever it is, you can buy it on Amazon too if you want to. The Amazon store also has, like, one of the greatest reviews from my cousin Justin, or Joel, not Justin, but you'll see Foreman, like I mentioned earlier, so his brother. And it's like the greatest review ever in the history of reviews that somebody could get, but it's my cousin, so it's a total cheat, at the end of the day too. But anyway, read the lyrics, like, read the lyrics, and you'll see, here's this guy on stage, he's tough as nails. I was definitely notorious for, like, punching the biggest guy in the room in the face to start a fight.
Mm,
Like,
mm,
I took the biggest risks in my life, bro, all the time. I always have. Stupid ones in some instances, right? Like, I totally made, like, a Latino. I didn't know that it was a racist slur, but I didn't care. But I made a Latino, like, racist slur from stage in Southern California with the Latin Kings present in the room. And I was not remorseful about it at all too, because I was like, "Well, I didn't know." So, on
yeah.
fight, it
Yeah.
was like literally like I literally was like numb to the
Mm,
world, right? And so there's like that side of Dale as well too, like this tough guy, and And ultimately, that was my coping mechanism with my sadness, that if I wasn't that guy, I would be extraordinarily sad and probably go back into that same pit of despair and depression. So, like, read those lyrics. Like, there's a suicide note essentially in one of those songs. It's called "When In Ashes I Leave,"
Mm.
and I literally like when I wrote a suicide note for the first time several years later in my copier career because I tried to kill myself and I failed at attempted suicide when I was an older
Sure.
male, pressured high performer in the sales world, right? And like it's all there. Like you could literally go through my past, like go through my metal days, go through my music, so my music to my sales career days, and you could see like the ultimately like who I was and what I was struggling with, even though I wasn't super vocal about it. And
Yeah.
so like selling a copier, like I love how you stated it. But to give some context, like to everything I just said, imagine that that's the guy that's selling the copier, right? So the
Yeah.
guy that that has lived through attempting suicide, that has done some of the stupidest shit you ever like heard in your life, and like just lived in ignorance for such a long time, who's becoming enlightened, who's also like turning to his faith heavily, becoming more ingrained with God, if you will, in my personal
Yeah.
walk, is learning how to sell a copy machine all at the same time. Like this huge transition. It was the easiest thing that I had going on, man. It was like simple, even though it was super frustrating. I mean, I swear to God, dude, there were some moments where I looked my dad dead in the eye. Now, I only worked for him for about 3.5 years, just about 4 years before he was acquired. And that's actually when I found my stride,
Yeah.
and became extraordinarily good at what I did. And not to say that I couldn't with my dad, but it was 2008, dog. It was like, no, I
Yeah.
had a job. Nobody bought a copy machine. I mean, it was crazy.
Yeah, no, you're still through the through a recession, yeah?
Yeah, like literally.
Yeah.
And not just any plain old recession, bro. They were saying like, this is the great
No,
recession of
no,
our
it's
generations, you know?
oh, yeah, yeah, the housing crisis.
Nuts.
Everybody got shit themselves. We had to wear fucking diapers. The it was awful. And yeah, dude, like, and to your point, man, I think which by the way, I completely like, I resonate with what you're saying because when we're talking about being kind of like at death's door, and this is not literal, but it could be figurative, there comes it you can have really great life. Everything can look on the surface like it's perfect, but part of you may feel hopeless, part of you may feel trapped. I went through that shit. And I went through it at a different period of my time where I had just worked at this startup and like the startup completely fell apart and I was already kind of like swimming in debt. And when the startup imploded, I remember how like how empty I felt. And I actually got to the point where I just stopped giving a fuck at some point where I had done 100% commission sales for years and years, and then I worked at companies like Reprise and Zoom Info and shit. Reprise is demo creations, so it doesn't matter. But I was going on like a kind of like a high, and then the experience at this company called Falcon of all companies did not soar high. I completely crashed and burned, and I had like basically put my entire identity into being this like top performing, like I'm a founding account executive, I'm gonna dominate it. And I got fired like that. And the company ended up collapsing. And when that happened, instead of going into this survival mode, I shut down and I didn't look for jobs. I let my bank account drain and I ended up having to sell everything in order to move back in with my parents. And this is when I'm 35, so not even that long ago. And I sold everything, and I remember holding my daughter's sock. It was a random fucking sock, and how big of a failure that I felt that like it was the sock. The sock fucking broke me. The fuck all this thing, all these things, all the things. I didn't give a fuck about my TV, my couch, my nice stuff. It was the sock that broke me. And I was holding this fucking pink sock in my hands. And I'm like, I'm gonna have to sell all of the shit for my daughter's house or for my daughter's room. And I'm gonna have to do all that shit. And it destroyed me because I felt like a complete failure. And when I moved back home with my parents, now mind you, my dad is I don't want to get into it, but he's a racist. He's like this is a man that has 2 masters and a bachelor's, right? 2 masters and a bachelor's, smartest man in the world, works in fucking manufacturing. This is a guy that literally like he judges everybody, and I'm living in this like angry, hateful environment. Angry. This is a man that just hates everything. And then you got my mother who has to put up with this bullshit. My dad has all these excuses, lives on cheeseburgers. And I'm living in that environment. And there were so many times I just wanted to give up. There's so many times that you're just sitting there just like, fuck this. This is not worth it. And I remember when my daughter came to visit, because my daughter lives with her mom. So another like thing. And she came to visit. And I remember instead of feeling like excitement, it was shame. It was shame that she has to see her father living with a piece of shit. And so that moment made me want to give up. I really, truly wanted to give up. I was too much of a coward to give up, though. I didn't. It wasn't. You can go across the road or down the street, whatever the fuck it is. I was just I was a coward, and I didn't. I didn't have the guts to do anything about it. I just was like I resigned myself to that fate. But I ended up. Long story short, I'm not making this a fucking therapy session. Promise. I swear to God, I've gotten over this. Okay, I'm not living at home now. I crawl out of my mom's basement. Uh, I got mad. I remember my motivation was actually just anger, right? Like I refuse to be this person that's a big piece of shit. I refuse. And so I got fucking angry. And that's how I put myself back out of the fucking fuck that I was in. So going to you, and again, I'm not trying to like I'm glad you shared that. Because it was a very raw thing. I felt like I needed to share something equally just because we see I see you, like I hear you, and it sounds like you had a perspective, and that perspective from that horrible dark time in your life, you were ironically saved through sales, right? And you were saved through like coffee sales is not shit compared to the dungeons in my mind, right? So, but at the same time, though, you're going through copier cells, and it's just like you read Zig Ziglar, and everything that you're taught is like you're supposed to sell this way. When did you figure out? Like, when did you have that like aha moment where you're just like, "Fuck this way"? My way is better. Like I know that I'm able to sell unrestrained, and I'm able to sell the way that I want to sell. Like I know I'm gonna be successful. Where did that shift happen for you personally? Like when was it like you had a specific sell? Like your dad just like go do they'll do your thing. Like what did that look like for you?
I think I'm still experiencing it, to be quite frank with you. I think every day is like another record or realization of ultimately who I truly am. And as time goes by, it helps me to really ultimately reflect on who I want to be and, versus who I've been and how I want to sell. You're just being like dead ass. I don't think I've got that part of me figured out yet because there's still plenty of times when in your mind you doubt this whole process for yourself. But I will say, I don't, I don't, and never have since probably 2009, late 2009 to early 2010. So I was Sandler Student of the Year. I had like the most dollars on the wall. I won some of the biggest sales of my life, like at that time frame of '08 to 2000 and late 2009, early 2010. But I woke up and I was like, wait a second, the success I'm actually having really has nothing to do with this like system that Sandler has created and has everything to do with those zany marketing that I'm doing, like this 8.5 by 11 framed picture of me stabbing a copy machine in the middle of the room, like with text over it saying every morning he wakes up believing this is his job, going to a CEO of $1 billion company where everybody else is like in a suit and a tie, stopping in the front desk with their site seller. Hi, I'm here to see Mark. Just tell him it's Dale, like, and Mark doesn't give a fuck. Like, and then there's this guy that's like that's coming in and he's kind of like he's a little bit more timid because he doesn't want to he's not trying to be egotistical. And he's a little more timid because he wants to make sure that he serves people effectively. And so he doesn't want to be overbearing and in your face. But he's got this thing that he left me. He gave me a brick and he told me, "Hey, you can throw this at your copy machine next time it breaks. I call it the repair brick and it'll fix it like immediately. Like it'll fix it because then the company will just have to come in and replace it because you completely destroyed the freaking thing, right?" So
Yeah.
and those are the moments in my career that I realized that ultimately that was who I was. That was how I sold. And all the pain funnels and the stuff that I was being told to try and do, I never even really did them. Just being, you know, very blunt about it. Because anytime I started, it felt like I was manipulating people. And then ultimately it felt like it's not really Dale. And so I always preferred the principle of like meeting people where they are, which is what my dad taught me. So if someone has a problem, meet them with the problem. If someone doesn't have a problem, stop trying to find one and like just be a great trusting provider that meets them in that place of pleasure or luxury or whatever specifically that they want out of that moment with you or that interaction with you and sell them that. Like you don't have to not every they say no pain, no sale, right? People say that all the time. I'm like, yo,
Yeah. Yeah.
but, like, who are you? Okay, cool, so all you ever sold was in a market where everything sucked? Okay, and, like, I sold in that market, bro. I sold copiers. No one likes their copier, dude. There were plenty of times that people were like that literally said to me, we have 0 problems with our copier. We never even called for service in the last, like, 8 years we've had it." Like,
Man.
we've just gotten it's been fine, but there's something different about you. We wanna reward you with our business. And, like, so, okay, so explain that to me, Sandler Gods and, Zig, like, explain that to me,
Yeah.
like, and so for me, I think ultimately it's always been this constant and continual discovery of, like, reaching deeply into who Dale is every day and waking up and fighting off the things that press against me and tell me I'm not good enough and
Yeah.
fighting off the things that say, "You're a bad dad, you're a bad husband," like, all the pressures, running a business, paying people every other week, a salary, like, all the pressure, man. The pressure is immense. It's insane, but, like, nothing in life worth doing was ever easy. I
Oh,
always come back to this ultimate principle of, like I said a second ago, selling people in the way that you're meeting them where they are. Well, I wake up every day and meet myself where I am too. I remind myself, Dale, it's okay if someone doesn't like your crumpled letter. Dale, it's okay. Like that's how you find your tribe, though, right, Dale? Because if they don't like your crumpled letter, they're not your people, man. So just like move to
right.
the next person. It's all good, bro. And like don't think, well, maybe I shouldn't send a crumpled letter to this person. Don't feel that way, Dale. I have to constantly go to that place every morning and remind myself, like, you're doing it right, bro, and keep going the way that you're going. So I don't know that I ever really had a realization because I feel like I've been having one for a solid, like 15 years, 16 years at this point, with a couple years in there because I'm 19 years in sales now, right? And so there's a couple years in there where I definitely was a little lost. I definitely was a little, I don't really know what my style is, who I sell like, but
Yeah.
I feel like if people treated it more like a journey than a destination, they'd have the same outcomes that I've had, which is making millions of dollars selling a box that prints and scans, right? It's a crazy thought.
Yeah, it's gonna and when you think about it, you're like in its most binary like subset of what a Xerox machine is. They all fucking do the exact same thing. And so I always thought that's interesting. When you see someone that's actually really, really successful when they do that. And I agree with you. I think that when I do feel like it's overly scripted, and I think there's too many people that feel like we have to sell a certain way, and the second that you sell outside of what's considered the norm, uh, you're you're the black sheep of your tribe, right? Because it's not that's not how we're taught. How dare you ever go outside of what's conventional and you're doing these unconventional things? How dare you send a crumpled letter to a prospect? Well, what will they think? And but like, who gives a fuck, right? Like if the way and maybe you stumbled on that by accident, but I think a lot of times people are overthinking like these like fabricated imagination based like outcomes. Like we allow ourselves to get paralyzed by like trying to be perfect. Fuck being perfect. Like that's not you. And if you try, by the way, like try to be perfect all the time, you burn out and it's not sustainable. I don't give a shit who you are. I don't care who you are. I don't care. I don't care. It is impossible for you to maintain that exceptional standard for yourself in every role. It's just not. It's not sustainable. Yes, will that make you a slightly bigger paycheck? Absolutely. But does that mean that you long term are going to be a better human for it? I don't think so. But to your point, though, what I think is really great is if we look at like the average amount of cells that a copier rep makes, on average is like 15, like 12 to 20 accounts a year. And I think I was reading your shit and you were averaging 50 accounts. So you were like doubling or tripling even. And then like on your best year, I think you did 77 net new accounts. So I guess all of the conventional wisdom, honestly, is fucking wrong, right? Eh, but would you say if somebody was like a new rep that's coming here doe eyed, they're like, I'm going to sell copiers. Would you say that your efforts could be duplicated? Or would you say that the reason that they work is because it's Dale Dupree and only Dale Dupree could do what you accomplished? Is that something that a regular sales rep could ever hope to achieve? Like,
Yeah.
what do you
I subscribe to the idea that like people are uniquely themselves, if you will, to like dumb down my answer to start and make it like less full of fluff, right? That like people like if I'm gonna be Dale, I'm gonna get exactly what Dale deserves. I'm gonna push toward those things. I'm gonna accept defeat. I'm gonna embrace the suck. I'm gonna live in risk. I'm gonna take all the measures that I possibly can to become uncomfortable constantly. And that's who Dale is. That's what Dale likes. And Dale knows that those are things that aren't normal for the typical person that Dale, runs into or that any of us land in anybody runs into. Well, there's a surrounded by people right now that I bet if we ask them like, hey, have you ever had sushi? And they're like, nah, I just don't really like fish. And we're like, "Cool. Yeah, but have you ever had it? And they're like, nah. And you go, cool. Do you want to try some? And like, nah. You're like, Dale, like you could be like, hey, have you ever eaten a cricket? And I'd be like, nope. How do we do that though? I'll try it with you. Hey, do you want to jump out of a plane? Not even in the slightest, but when
Sure.
that day, when are we
Oh,
going?
in the psych, sign me up. Yeah.
Like it, and like Dale is that guy. Like I know what has come from risk and reward. Like it was risky for me to be honest about my depression. It was risky for me to tell my wife and my father, who were the only people that knew at that point in my life for a very long time, that like I tried to kill myself and I failed, and this is how. And I mean, what an incredible part of my story in hindsight. But man, how like every ounce of me was like, don't tell anybody this. And as a matter of fact, don't tell them because you're gonna finish going through with this, right? Was the
Mm,
thought process even. And but like I have learned over the course of my life that the more that I speak up and I don't live in silence, I go further. And because of that, I do believe that like Dale will have his very unique success. But I also think, let's say here, I got a guy right now. He's in his 50s. You never know, bro. He's such a fun dude, and like, and I'm talking like late 50s, right? But like, he wears the brightest colors, and he's the life of the party, and he doesn't believe in age. That's what he always says, right? But he comes into the rebellion as like, with a bunch of kids. We're kids, bro. We're a bunch of kids over here, right? And this guy comes, and he's like, I love what you stand for. I love what you're doing. I want to be a part of this. And his unique success so far, dude, I'm like how he has come to me with it is he's gone, hey, thank you for giving me permission to be who I wanna be. because and thank you for introducing me to your ideas. I've made them my own. And I think that that's more powerful, bro, than like replicating Dale in the first place. I think that's powerful. And like people tend to come to me and go, dude, look at this. The CEO of JB Hunt, right? She emailed me and set up an appointment with me because of the thing I sent her in the mail. And that's all you, man. And thank you. And I'm just like, nah, dude, I didn't hit send. I didn't make the thing. You did it. It's yours. And I always encourage people like, to have their own version of success and not to try and chase mine or anybody else's, like I hear too many people say things like, "Oh, I'm really trying to live that life like X influencer," or "I'm
Yeah.
trying to build my family the same way these people on Instagram are building theirs." And I'm like, "Nah, fam, like take the principles of those things and write your own freaking story and be prideful about it. Be arrogant in a healthy way about it and make it yours. Do everything possible to enjoy it, do everything possible to extend it, to make it a journey and not a destination." And I think
Yep.
ultimately, if people do it that way, then, and this might be counterintuitive to everything I just said, but if they do it that way, they will have Dale Dupree type success, right? It'll just
Yeah.
be uniquely theirs, if you will.
Yeah. Yeah. I think, and I think to your point, like there, there comes a point to where we all have like our own like paradigm shit. Not just in cells, but just like as individuals where we find our voice and we find our style that works for us. And I tell everybody this that comes to me and they have questions or they need help, at the end of the day, you've got to find your own style and you have to find your own uniqueness. Like what makes you you? And I think this is one of the things like you don't when we look at like traditional like sales influencers and these sales coaches and all this, these cups or whatever. At a certain point, you have to ask yourself, are you just trying to create like a fucking micro army of just yourself? Like, do I just want a bunch of like Jordan Belfort running around on the street? Like, don't get me wrong, dude's good at what he does, but and I take some of the things from him, right? But do you really want that? Do you really want a bunch of Chris Bosses asking that question? Have you given up on this project? Have you? Can you tell me more? Like, how uncomfortably close do I need to be with that? But it's like I don't want a bunch of fucking mates running around. You kidding me? It's and I think to your point, like we're all at different like destinations. We all arrive at like our at the point of our journey, in the point of our destination, at different timelines. And there's a whole like breadth of experience like I'm never going to experience from you. I never sold coffee ears. How the fuck am I gonna know that perspective? Well, you tell me, right? Like I can live vicariously through that story, but I don't think that's something that I can replicate. I can't replicate you. And at the same time, like, you know, for me, the only way I got better is I just got really uncomfortable, like all the time. You think it was like sales intrinsically for me, anyways, my perspective it's an act of constantly being uncomfortable and constantly like as you would think about experimentation, think about when you're prospecting, when you're door knocking. That shit's uncomfortable. Nobody wants to be rejected. I didn't come out of the womb being like, hey, can you tell me no? Please? Like nobody fucking wants that. Nobody seeks rejection. I do. I like it now. But like back in the day, it wasn't something that was fun for me. But like that thing, for some people, like be serious. Not for you. Not and maybe you're not cool looking like an idiot. And that's okay. Right. I guess kind of let's like take move gears for a second here. And we look at like the new age of sales with like artificial intelligence. And then we have like the old way of sales, which is copy your sales, door to door, meeting in person. And what do you think, like, on this trajectory that we're going into, where AI now is starting to be the voice of like people, and where AI you're starting to see more and more of, yeah, it's scaling mediocrity, in my opinion. But you know, when you're in argue like would you say it's worse selling today compared to what it was in 2008? Like would you rather be selling in a recession in 2008 or would you rather be selling in a tariff-based world with fucking artificial intelligence where every fucking goober with a computer now and it can there's so many different subscriptions. So it's like, what do you do? Like, oh, you know what I mean? Like, how do you? What is it? Does it suck to sell today? Should we like what is AI going to replace your jobs? No, because it sucks. But I love to know your thoughts on that. Like,
I think AI is a trend. I say this all the time, and people go, "Oh," and they freak out. I shouldn't do it like that because, like, I think people hear that and they can become insecure because they think like a trend, and I go, listen, the definition of a trend is very important to understand. People are using AI in a way that they think is what AI was made for. It was not made to write your sales messages and send your sales emails and put comments on LinkedIn. It is made to take your job. Like you just said, it's made like there's a shelf behind me over here at this place that I'm working out on, and there's a bunch of product. And I can take that product off the shelf right here. No person has to help me. And I could walk it over to this little thing, this box. I could set it on that box and it scans everything on that and it rings me up and I put my little credit card in a slot before I even walked into this place. And when I leave, it charges me.
all that.
Like, and
Yes.
no people even I don't even literally have to I don't say hello to someone. I don't say goodbye to someone. The people using AI in sales are the trend. That's what it is. And they're literally so there's 2 types of people. There are the people that are trending, and then there are the people that are using it to mirror themselves, which is really what it's made for. It's made for efficiencies and process behind the scenes. It's made for accountability, if you will, in some instances, or the ability to be able to condense things down to something where you can like read faster, learn better perspective, maybe one you didn't have already based on information that's out there. It's not meant to speak for you. It's not meant to act for you outside of those small things that it takes care of that like in my opinion are here to stay. Like AI operating your business efficiently is here to stay. But AI is like as your SDR. I saw this dumb, stupid, ridiculous advertisement on Instagram. They deleted my comment. It blew the post up though. I got like thousands of likes and then they deleted me and blocked me. But it was this company that it was like bragging about its AI SDR, making a phone call to a buyer at 2 in the morning
No.
because the guy was writing at 2 a.m. He was up and he was like, "Oh man, I'm worried about my business. I need to sell something." And he put in a submission and it called him to set an appointment, bro, and to qualify him. And they're like, "Look at how awesome our AI SDR is." And I'm like, that is the stupidest thing. This is comedy. This is
Oh, that's so hard. That's so
this
funny.
is never going to do anything for the sales world. This person is a matter of fact that you're calling, even if he buys your thing, he's desperate. He'll cancel it just as fast as he bought it. You are sucking the life from this person in a moment of weakness is all you're doing. And so now we take like all the bad influencers, the YouTube influencers, the all the people that have saturated sales and made it a garbage profession for a generation of people, right? And you're turning that into a robot that like exists forever and it never goes away, right? So like at least like the influencers will die one day and we don't have to listen to them anymore, right? You know?
I wish they'd fucking die sooner. Oh, God, I wish they would. Cancel me over it. I don't give a fuck. It's so dumb. It's so dumb. And like, what's worse, if I'm being honest with you, dude, it's exhausting because every person now can be an influencer like overnight, right? Like you have AI, and I'm going to take the ideas of AI and I'm just going to prepackage that and I'm going to make content. And you are going to be part of my flywheel. And I'm going to put you into my sales funnel. And by the way, it's only with AI generated content. You don't have to sell the fucking thing to be an expert in it, which is so dumb. I'm going in a tangent. Well, like I think the biggest problem I have with AI, and by the way, I use it. Like I know I'm not opposed to it. Like I sell in cybersecurity now, and cybersecurity, by the way, complex as fuck. It has a ton of acronyms. I hate it. And I don't pretend like I own that like I'm a hillbilly. Like I just own. Oh, this is we're gonna keep this at a high level, please. Thank you. You're welcome. You know, I use AI to do like the things that I don't want to do, which is the research piece, which is trying to like tell me about follow ups, like tell me the things that I do a bad job on because I'm human. But when you start relying on AI to start thinking for you, what that does, in my opinion, it removes the ability to be creative. When you're using AI as a crutch because you are incapable of like thinking outside of the box, like I think that fucking hurts you. And so what happens is AI does a really shitty job at hallucinating because it takes facts and it compacts these facts and it'll say things that are blatantly wrong or inaccurate as fact. And that hallucination is dangerous. And I think when you have that, especially in cybersecurity, you cannot bullshit. You can't because they'll call you out. And I think, like to your point, when we have AI, like AI SDRs, that'll never exist. At a certain point, and like there was a dude that made a post on like AI SDRs are going to kill SDRs. There's always that fucking asshole. By the way, I'm real quick time check. Do you do you have a hard stop or do you have a few minutes?
I'm good. I
Okay.
got only 15 minutes.
Okay, cool. Same here. Um, so like he like and of course there's that stupid phrase is like whatever X is dead. Like cold calling is dead. Email said it's not. It's just you suck at it. But the guy was like talking about how AI SDRs are going to completely replace regular SDRs, and I'm like, no, that's never going to happen. And like when you think about the I've been on on the receiving end of some of the messaging, and it's dog shit. Like all it does is it parrots what other people are saying, and but it doesn't understand the reason why it's saying it because it's not fucking. It's a tool, right? And so I guess for you now, like going tying everything back in, you know, you had to think creatively. You literally made songs before Google even was a thing, right? And you got into heavy metal and you had to inspire your own creativity. You had to inspire your own lyrics. And then you had all of that journey that happened within your mind, the dungeons and sewers of your mind. You had that. And that component, do you ever wonder that we're going to get to a point and I'm trying to figure out the best way to say this, but do you think that we're gonna get to a point where I don't think AI is ever gonna truly replace sellers. I think it'll replace really shitty sellers. I agree with that, right? The baseline I think is risen. The floor is risen. I don't think we're ever gonna get into an age where you're ever gonna have an AI version of me trying to do like discovery with someone like you. Like that's never gonna happen. I don't think so. And even if it exists, like I don't think if people still have to receive it. Like nobody wants to talk to a robot, so we always want to talk to a human when we get on the phone. But with AI, I guess for you in the self rebellion, is this something like do you reject the notion of AI? Like, do you think because you say it's a trend, basically? Do you think that AI has a place in making sellers better, or do you think AI really is just like again, it's scaling mediocrity. And it gives a false sense of confidence that you're really not like it makes you feel like you're better than you actually are. But when you get into when you remove the AI piece of like, what do you do? So I guess what are you bearish on the future? Are you bullish? Do you think we're fucked? Or do you think like being a human is going to be a much more desirable thing and being very imperfect is ultimately going to be like the 1% of cells.
I don't think AI is going away. So I think as the trend changes, I think you'll slowly watch how it actually will work in the sales world effectively. Someone's gonna unlock that sooner than later. And really it already is unlocked if you think about it again. It's more about the way that it works from a process standpoint, more so than the way that it helps you do your work as a seller,
Mhm.
right? It's because your work as a seller is the art of sales. And even if AI pretends like it can mirror or match art, it can't. No one has been able to prove that to me. Not even the people that are like so dead set on it, that they've taken my bet and given me the experience with it. It's like I've even, like, in a non-biased fashion, landed, like, have literally said, "Okay, I'm received it, and I'm running this by everybody in my circles that love AI. I'm gonna tell you if they think this is art, because I don't for sure." And, and, like, 9 out of 10 times, it's like, "Nah, I mean, it's close, Dale, it's real close, but it's not," right? So, here's the other thing, though, okay? Everybody listen. This is super important in my opinion, and this is what the rebellion stands for. Like, if you come to totality in August, you'll experience exactly this. Like you'll walk through physical sets that we build. You'll put your hands on crumpled letters and look at the whole playbook and see things that you never even thought about that like we don't expose because we like the thing is that it if you it's not about keeping secrets, it's about understanding that if you tell somebody like here, this is how a crumpled letter works, their preference and perception is gonna kick in, and they're gonna do it exactly as they think that they're hearing it, but when they could see it, touch it, feel it, understand the process differently, man, it slaps, and those people are the ones that typically walk away and make it work really well for themselves, but I digress. In 10 years, there will be a winery out in California where the grapes are planted, they bloom, and they're genetically modified, by the way. They bloom, and then, like, a robot will come through the field and we'll shake the tree and we'll pull the grapes and then that robot will then deliver those grapes to the next part of the process, if you will. That wine will become mold, it will become fermented, all the different styles, and it'll all be done by a robot which will be powered by machine learning, which will be literally a augmented, it'll be AI, bro. It'll be everything about it will be a hands-off approach. There will maybe be one person employed instead of 1,000 because of this. Okay. And then what will happen is that when that wine is ready for distribution, a truck will drive itself without a driver to the location. A robot will load that truck up with all that wine, and that truck will leave and it'll head to Mexico and Florida and Canada, and it'll distribute your wine everywhere. And when it gets there, a robot will come out of the store and pick it up and put it in the store exactly where it's supposed to go. And you will shop in that store by yourself with other consumers with maybe one or two people instead of 100 working at that store. And this is the future of the world, bro. Nobody should deny this. This is what people are trying to build this and they will over time. Okay. But I also want you to think about this. Right next to that winery, bro, there will be an old lady in her 80s.
Yep.
Right? She will plant those same grape trees. She will pick those grapes with her bare hands. She will ferment that wine. She will bottle that wine. She will cork that wine. She will age that wine. And then she will sell that wine right in her backyard. And I'm telling you right now, dude, that person, that woman, she will never die because she's a rebel, because she understands that people are going to long for and desire that kind of interaction, that kind of experience, that kind of emotional context, that kind of just in general story that's being told in that place, as opposed to the shitty story being told with everything else in AI. So, while yes, I believe ultimately that the trend will lead from, oh, this makes me better at my job, to, oh shit, I just lost my job. That's what I fully intend
Yeah.
when I say that AI is a trend. It's a trend because people think it will help them. It's actually going to replace you guys. Like, and I do agree with you that it's not going to replace all sellers for sure. There's no way that that happens. That'd be insane. Then if it did happen, it would just be like basically robots selling to robots, right? Like a robot buyer and a robot seller. Like that's
Yeah.
literally like a game of chess, right? Like it's what will
Yeah.
happen at that point. But come back to it. Everybody listening, come back to the most important part of what I just said, that like stories are more important and the human experience is more important. And that little old lady and her passion and her drive and her desire and the things that she produces and provides for us because it'll taste better, it'll make us feel better. We'll be into it in the same breath. And the people that stay the course will be made
Yeah.
fun of. They will be told they're stupid. They will be called idiots in front of all of their peers. Like me, I'm called that all the time by people. You're dumb if you don't think AI is taking it, or like you're dumb if you think AI is a trend. It's like, yes, it is. And then you'll all be coming to my totality conference instead of going to the AI conference. Like that's what will be
Yeah.
happening at some point. Like the tide will shift and everyone will want the experience again. And I'll be the one that wins at the end of the day. And every person that wants to beat AI, think like me, go forth, and I'll see you in 50 years and we'll see who was right.
Yeah. Yeah. Get fucked, right? Like it's this is the last thing. But yeah, I'm with you 1,000%. 1,000%. I think a lot of folks try to lean into AI as being a magic bullet. They think it's going to be the cure for cancer. And yeah, maybe it actually will probably be able to cure cancer. I actually really believe that. There's already a bunch of that shit. And by the way, AI can make music. Did you know that? Did you fucking know that? It's kind of crazy, right? Suno.ai is a thing. I'm not trying to go into a fucking tangent, but it's crazy. I made a metal song using AI and it sounds pretty convincing. And I think at the end of the day, when we look at what AI is, ultimately it is a Uber parrot. It is an Uber parrot. And so it's parroting all the good things that people do. And I think that when we use AI as a tool, it's super helpful. And I think that makes us do our jobs better, faster. I agree with that. I don't think, I think if you completely remove people out of the equation, to your point, where it is literally going to be like robots selling to robots, like at some point, you know, how many of these jobs and positions are we going to have that are effectively just going to be redundant? Right? Like if we look at an accountant, CFO, do you really need them? I don't think so. I don't. I think those jobs are at risk. I think paralegals are going to be at risk. I'm not trying to go on to a giant fucking tangent with it, but yeah, we're gonna see a massive displacement of roles, and I think as much as people want to try to get rid of the revenue engine of salespeople, I don't think we're actually going to be going anywhere. And I think we're going to be those little old ladies that are 80 years old and we're still going to be using the same boomer fucking tools, still having the hoe and rake, everybody. Like, and I think I don't want to get political, but with the political climate, guess who got elected, right? Like, that's not a dude that follows protocol anywhere, right? I don't give a fuck what your political affiliation is, but like, think about stuff like that. And I think that is ultimately ironically, we're trying to go back to the roots. I think at its core, people crave that experience with people. That's why we go to restaurants instead of trying to always make food at home. You can go and like you can literally meal kits, man. I can microwave a steak. It came to my fucking door. I don't even have to make the fucking thing. So why the fuck do I go to a restaurant? Just the experience. Why do you tip when we all bitch about tipping? Because the experience, right? So I think at the end of the day, the experience I think triumphs over the machine. But anyway, we're at time. Listen, Dell Dupree, the copier warrior. If someone's trying to follow you, they want to get with you, quick 30 seconds. How the fuck do they give you money? How do the fuck do they better their lives, be better sellers? 30 seconds to go.
Yeah, just head to thesalesrebellion.com. We got all the free stuff, all the paid stuff. Check out the Rebel Arcade. It's got a lot of our cool tutorials of the way to DIY what we do as a Rebel, basically for a very affordable cost. But really, like what I would say is, like, don't pay me money. Just like make the commitment to be the little old lady, like we talked about today. Like, be the rebel every day of your life. Think about the way, like, think about where your gaps are, what's working, what's not, and then consume our content, our free content, LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, you name it. Just like it, consume what it is that we're preaching, apply it to your life, write your own version of that success. Don't be like Zig Ziglar and all the other people. Oh, God bless them. They were great for their time, but move away from this idea of trying to mirror everybody else and their success and like find your freaking own at this point. I think that's the best part about what we talked about today and what the sales rebellion stands for. So don't even give me money. Just go be a rebel.
Be a rebel. Well, that is it for today's episode. Hope you guys have a good one and rebel against the system. Rebel. Be good.